Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. WeBelieveDigital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. On We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening and welcome to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. We've been seen all over the world in over 139 countries. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube TV, on Roku TV, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share with your friends and family and send us stars. I want to thank the young lady last week that sent stars to the program. We really appreciate that. And so we want others to join in because we need the financial support to bring you these kind of critical conversations. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to subscribe. Subscribe so that we can get our base up and then more people can enjoy this kind of information. If you're watching us on WeBelieveDigital.com, then we want you to hit the donate button. You know, many times you can get more people who believe in the work that you're doing to share and contribute far greater than you can get people to advertise with you because people are afraid of their brand. This show really talks truth to power. And sometimes, you know, the ugliness of the truth, people want to hide from it. Many times we see that in our leaders in the government when they ban the critical race theory being taught here in Mississippi. They just want to hide from the truth of the past of this great state. And until we put the truth out on the table where everybody can see it, until we identify what the problem has been and continues to be, then you cannot find a solution. So this program specifically is designated to putting the truth in front and center in the hopes that we can shed light on the situation, correct the situation, and move Mississippi forward from the last place in every major category to somewhere in the middle, so that Mississippians can enjoy full first-class citizenships like they enjoy in Connecticut, so that Mississippians can have the same health care as they have in New York City, so that Mississippians can have a living wage in great schools like the rest of the country. There's no reason that Mississippi doesn't have that. God's blessed it with the right climate. It's ideally situated with beautiful beachfront property down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Interstate 20 and Interstate 55 intersects right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We should be a transportation hub. We should have been the Atlanta long before Atlanta was. We had such a head start. We had such a privileged position that God gave us with the most fertile soil in the world. You think of the soil in the Mississippi Delta. It's none like it anywhere else in the country. It can grow anything. It's fertile. The mighty Mississippi rolls right through our banks. Our port at Vicksburg should be a major port, like the one in New Orleans and the one in Jacksonville, Florida. But we've had poor leadership, and that poor leadership has kept us back in order that they might maintain a way of life that they've enjoyed since the beginning of time, and it's got to do with white supremacy and superiority, and I'm better than you, and in order for me to maintain my status quo, I must keep my foot on your neck. And so that continues to go on in Mississippi in 2023. There's so much that went wrong in 2021 and 2022, where Mississippi, and especially Jackson, well, let's break it down. Mississippi had the highest number of incarcerated individuals of any state in the nation, thereby having the highest number of incarcerated individuals of any place in the world. You heard me. We got more people locked up in Mississippi based upon our population than any other place in the world. Right here in Mississippi. And Jackson, Mississippi had the dubious distinction of being the #1 homicide city in the world. Year before last, we had 154 homicides, and this past year we had over 130, and we're rolling in 2023. The young lady that runs the program here, called The Hurt Is the Same, said there had been over 500 homicides in Jackson, Mississippi in the last 5 years. Now, that is a tremendous number. We didn't lose 500 soldiers for the entire Vietnam War from Mississippi. We have some issues that we have to deal with. And the real issue, are we bold enough, courageous enough to put the problem on the table front and center? My guest, as always, is the distinguished and honorable Dr. Eldridge Henderson, a man that was born on the plantation. You know, I can't just blow by that. You got to get the significance of this. I'm sitting here in 2023, sitting next to a man that was born on the plantation. On the plantation, not born in the free part of the world. He's born on a plantation in Mississippi, and he's sitting right here next to me. So it's just been a little while. It's just been a little while since we all got out of slavery and got off of the plantation. We're still sitting here, just moments away from that history. And yet we want to hide our history. But let me introduce, without going any further, the distinguished young man on my right, Dr. Eldridge Henderson. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, sir.
Well, it's good to have you in the studio as always.
Thank you.
I want to get right into it. Doc, we are losing ground as Mississippians. The state of Mississippi is falling further into the abyss. What is driving it? What's causing it? So that we can talk about how to turn that around.
Well, to be straight to the point, sir, since you were 100% on point with your introduction, we are falling forward fast because of two things: systemic and institutional racism and the religion of white supremacy. Those three things are killing Mississippi. It's making the state worse economically, politically, socially. The leadership is being diluted with people that are not qualified to do anything on an equitable basis. They are very exclusive in their leadership styles. They concentrate their resources in certain hands. They don't give the funds that are obligated and delegated to the poor people in the state, and I'm talking about poor whites and poor blacks. Those funds are used to their peers, and when I say their peers, I'm talking about the people in the legislature or their appointees. And that's why we're at the bottom in all the categories that you could mention. But I do have some good news about Mississippi. One thing that I've found, when you look at the stats, Mississippi is a nation, a part of the nation that contribute a lot to nonprofit organizations and to charity. That's the only good thing about it. They will help people. But when it comes to looking out for equity and constitutional government, you won't find it in this state and most southern states.
Well, Doc, it's admirable to say that, we are generous people, that we are benevolent, and that we will give and we will assist our neighbors. You and I grew up at a time when we didn't have homeowners insurance, and nobody had insurance in the entire country.
And you couldn't get it.
And you couldn't get it.
That's right. You couldn't go to a big insurance company and get insurance. You couldn't go to the big hospital and get accepted as a patient, even when you had serious problems. I remember times when black folks would have accidents on the highway. We called them roads during that time. And someone would call the police after they walked 2 or 3 miles up the street to find a telephone. The police would call an ambulance, and they just assumed it was a Caucasian person. The ambulance get to the accident, and it's a black person. The ambulance will leave. The police will tell them to call the black funeral home.
Whoa.
To pick up that person and take him to the hospital. And many times, if you would be taken to the hospital, you couldn't get in. And if they would allow you to come in, your black doctor, if you had one, couldn't even come and take care of you. Now, that's during my time, Mr. Socrates.
Wow.
Here in Hinds County, I'm going to be Pacific, in Hinds County, Mississippi, back in the 40s and 50s. I don't think the healthcare situation changed where the black doctors could go into the so-called white hospitals and take care of their patients until sometime in the 1960s. And I think a doctor named Dr. Robert Smith caused this to happen, to get these black doctors to get what we call visitation rights in the hospital. Now,
A doctor had to have visitation rights in a hospital.
That's right.
That's crazy.
That's exactly the way it was.
Where were you born?
I was born in a place called Delta, Mississippi, up around the Bentonia area. And according to my parents, in about a week's time, they had moved down to Hinds County, Mississippi, on a plantation. Now, I was born on a plantation, on a big plantation. They had thousands of acres of land. And when they moved to Bolton, Mississippi, in the Bolton area, back in that time, it was called the Brownsville Orange Hill area in Hinds County. And the plantation owner there didn't have much land. He had about 3,000 acres.
3,000.
And he was very nice to my father, gave my father 7 acres. And he told him, say, that's not enough, boss. Say, we need at least 2 or 3 more acres. I have 6 kids. And he gave him 2 or 3 more acres. I think he ended up eventually with 10 acres. And he had to raise the 6 kids, he and my mom, on those 10 acres. And for 11 years straight, we never got out of debt, and we were never able to prosper. Not 1 year.
Doc, you were born there, but were you born in the hospital?
No, we had a midwife.
So where were you physically born?
At home. We had the exclusive right to be born at home. My dad and I talked about this not too long ago, and he was saying he was very upset when I was born because the midwife charged $5. He was accustomed to paying $3 and say he didn't have but $3, and there it is. I caused him to have to pay almost double. But he gave her $3 and paid the other $2 later on. Now, he told me this a few months ago.
Well, did the midwife have a license? Were they medically trained? How is it that you were born at home and not in a hospital, not with doctors that we have today, and survived?
Well, it was very easy. Back in those times, those midwives were trained OJT, on the job. They always had the opportunity to be trained by their old former grandmothers, their mothers, that were excluded from so-called certificates or credential programs. So you learn through trial and error. And they had a good success rate. See, I'm still here.
Yeah.
I didn't have to go to the hospital 2 weeks later. Now you can go to the hospital and you come out dead.
Well, they say when you go there, you're going to either get well or it's going to kill you. That's the reputation that we have, especially here in Mississippi. Now, we had some black-operated hospitals called charity hospitals, I believe.
We did.
And I don't think we have any of those now.
They're gone.
And you had a situation where you and your father acquired 10 acres of land and 6 children. And today, Doc, I see 6 children on a lot.
That's right. What I'm saying now, the plantation owner gave my dad 10 acres to work on his plantation. He didn't sell it to him.
Oh.
We had to work that land.
Oh.
See, he had to put you in a little tight environment, give you your spot, because he had a lot of tenants. And when you have a lot of tenants and only 3,000 acres, you don't want to lose anyone, so you just cut down on the number of acres per child, and then you just allow your tenant to borrow more money and get deeper in debt. So he didn't worry about paying the bills. The tenants were not going anywhere. So if you owe $400, he'll let you borrow some money to start the next year and pay that extra $400, add that to the bill, and in about 5 years, you would never be able to leave unless you died.
Well, now compare that to today. You were articulating a situation where black men and women were sharecropping, and they would get their needs from the corner store that the master owned, and you put it on credit, and you were never able to pay that debt off.
Never.
Compare that to where we are today. We're no longer on the boss man's plantation in that sense of the word. So where is the black man today?
Well, I would tell you, and this is a fact, the black man today that lives off the plantation is worse off than the people that lived on the plantation 50 or 60 years ago. Now, if you owe a lot of money now to an institution, I guarantee you they're going to foreclose on something. They're going to take your car. They're going to take everything except your children. They're going to put a garnishment on your check if you have a check. And you might end up in jail.
Now, you cannot sit here to say in 2023 and say and telling the world that a black man was better off on the plantation 50 years ago than he is today.
Of course.
You were saying that.
That's a fact. I'm telling you from example. My father never was pressured to pay his debt. They would always say, boy, what do you need for Christmas? Y'all come down here and get what you want and put it on the book. My dad would say, or my grandfather, yes, sir, we need $50. We need a bag of flour. We need a new mule. Get it. You go down there and get what you want. They know we were getting them locked in. How many children you have? They call them children back in the I got 5. I heard that your wife is pregnant. Yeah. Good. What do you need? That kind of thing.
What happens today?
Same thing. But it's worse.
Anybody asking you what do you need today?
No,
or they don't want to know how many children you got today?
They don't care about you today, sir. Matter of fact, if you have some children today and they have about their children today in Mississippi, in the South, and throughout the nation, in most cases. And if you're a poor person, black or white, and you don't have adequate insurance, you're living in someone's trailer park or someone's old raggedy apartment, you just don't have a good hope for positive survival, in my opinion.
So, as we teach history, as we talk about things that we've lived through, not something that we read about, something that we personally witnessed, as we teach that, we're saying that the black man today is in worse condition than he was when he was, in fact, living on the plantation.
Now, that is a historical fact.
And that is a disturbing fact.
It is, most certainly. Most people won't believe it. Most black people that I know think they are doing well. Even the so-called middle-class people think they are doing well, and they are totally in debt. The mortgage is not paid off. They have 2 or 3 cars they are paying on. they have a credit card with from $3 to $10 or $30,000. If they are under 60, most that have finished college have a student loan to pay off. Man, they have more debt than the federal government.
Wow. And so I don't recall anybody committing suicide in the community that I came from.
No, they didn't. I know you don't.
I just never heard of that.
It didn't happen.
It did not happen. But I hear about it all the time now.
Exactly. Even young people now, 10, 15, 13, killing themselves because of economic and social obstacles that they can't overcome.
That they cannot overcome.
They cannot overcome, sir.
And so somewhere we've lost our way. Now we're getting ready to go to a station break, and we're going to talk about some things that we can do to make life better for black folk. And black folk are going to have to listen, and you're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to implement some of the things that are going to be said here this evening. If you're watching us on Facebook, share this program with your friends and families. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to subscribe. If you're watching us on WeBelieveDigital.com, hit the donate button. Send us the support that we need to keep going. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the deep, deep South. You know, Mississippi is our home. You know, we could leave Mississippi anytime that we got ready. Nobody's blocking the highway. Nobody is forcing us to stay here in Mississippi. But it's something about where you were born. It's something about home. It's something about that we love, we're drawn to the motherland, to the home. And that's why people go on these great pilgrimages, going back to the homeland. You know, Poland's want to go back to Poland. You know, Israelis wanted a homeland, and so we created one for them. Everybody needs a base. Where you from is a common question. There's two questions that we're often asked in this country. You know, one is who you folk. And that used to be the number one question that was asked when you came around in the community, because you just didn't come around in the community without somebody knowing who you were. So the deal was, who you folk and where you from. Now, Dr. Henderson, who you are and where you're from was tremendously important in that people need to have a base. Now, when slavery came along, we created a man now that is not from Africa, but he is black. But he is not from Africa. Is he, in fact, a man without a homeland?
He's worse than that. He is a man without a homeland, without a known language, without a known culture. He has no known religion. He doesn't even know his grandmother, his father, his relatives. He knows nothing about the folklores and mores of his previous generation. He is totally man-made. He has been inflicted with a new ideology in religion, politics, culture, language, all of them, and he knows nothing about himself beyond probably the area where he was born.
So if you don't know anything about yourself, why do people try to tie back in and go on these great pilgrimages? Because the value is in who they are. Their self-esteem comes from there. This new man-made man that you're describing doesn't have any of that in his lineage, in his heritage, in his mind. So he has nothing to hold on to.
Nothing.
So
Nothing.
what makes him act decently or indecent?
Well, it's because of his needs. These man-made men and women are very consumer-centric. They want to buy things that make them look like people that they see that have economic means. They want nice cars, nice home, jewelry, and they want to look like their oppressors. They're going to look like them. They buy that bleaching glow. When I was young, black folks used to make the drugstores rich, buying that bleaching glow so they can look white, so they can pump or do their hair and all kinds of things. Look at the entertainers, the preachers and others during those years in the 30s through the 1960s.
Or are you saying that they wanted to emulate the oppressor?
That's exactly right. And they were encouraged to do so.
So you mentioned earlier in your remarks that there are a couple things that has really held the African American race down. And one of those things was the religion. Now, I'm a very religious person. Went to church every Wednesday and every Sunday. You know, they stayed there most all day on Sundays. And we sang all of the songs of Zion, you know, at the cross, at the cross. You know,
right.
We sung all those songs. And I thought that got us through and made us strong and gave us the hope that we needed of a better day. You seem to want to say that religion has held the black man back.
Oh, yes, most certainly. That's a historical fact.
How can that be?
Well, because the black man, again, is the recipient of the modern man-made religion that has been paraphrased from the Bible and then paraphrased from what the people that paraphrased the Bible were taught. And then they taught that to their people, and I'm talking about the Europeans and others. And then once they got the black people here, they gave them another paraphrased version of the same Bible and messed around and made themselves God, changed God from colored to white with long hair and blue eyes, and made him the superior person that you're supposed to respect while you're alive, and then make sure you go to heaven and visit with him when you die. And that's why black people had Jesus Christ, Martin Luther King, and John F. Kennedy on their walls and in their offices when I was a young boy up until the 1970s, because they had been remade. And many people get confused when I use the word that you are a man-made person. And that's what most blacks are, but many don't want to admit it.
Religion. More wars have been fought about religion than any other thing. There have been more religious wars across this country. And then there have been some wars like the Civil War and things of that nature, where the Civil War was specifically fought to try and keep a way of life of white supremacy that had been established predominantly in the South, and they fought to try and maintain that way of life by keeping you as an enslaved person in the field, driving the fuel for the economic engines. That's what that war was about.
Exactly.
Now, religious wars, I'm not sure what they are about.
Same thing.
Explain.
It's to keep you in a state of condition where you don't want to get out of that condition until you die. This new man-made religion that the Europeans used on black people, even up to today, say basically that you're supposed to take any kind of abuse that I give you, pray for me, love me, and you'll get your reward when you die and go to heaven. That's basically, making it short, what it's all about these days.
Control.
That's exactly right. And most people I know that poor or dead broke or working poor that have a lot of assets but don't own anything want to go to heaven. Most of them that I talk about, that's where they want to go when they die. I want to go to heaven. I'll do anything to go to heaven. That's what most people I know tell me on a regular basis.
A good friend of mine, Howard Kitchens, would say oftentimes that it's hard on a colored. It's hard on a colored, then you die, get ready for the fire.
That's right.
That's a tough way to look at life.
That's right.
It's hard on a colored, then you die and get ready for the fire.
Well, sir, if you look at the Bible, it takes a hell of a man to die and live on this earth and go to heaven. There are so many requirements. And the bad news, most people that's trying to get to heaven don't even know the requirements. There's something called the Ten Commandments. And for years, and I done told you this many times, I will offer $500 when I would be doing a speech. Say, anybody that can stand up here and tell me the Ten Commandments in order as written in the King James Version, I give them $500. They'll start raising their hand. And I would say, not now. Wait until I finish. And I would call 2 or 3 up. Never had one to do it in 30 years. One man almost gave me a heart attack. He got up to number 7. I said, doggone, this man, I don't have no $500. And he missed it. Never. So
Well,
if you don't know them, you can't practice them.
I don't know the Ten Commandments. I cannot recite the Ten Commandments.
Most
You know,
people
I know the one that I thought was the most important, the 2.
What are they? What are those 2?
Honor their father and their mother.
That's what you better know.
Yeah, and you know, it says that your life will be lengthened.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then the other one that was, have no other God before me, that is a very jealous God.
Mm-hmm.
So I know those 2. But all that, thou should not kill and all that, I don't get to none of that.
Look, sir, now just those 2 won't get you to heaven.
Wow.
I want you to understand that.
No.
Now, that's all you know and that's all you do. You are not likely to end up in heaven. I hate to tell you that publicly.
Well,
And let me tell you why.
And I think you're wrong, but go ahead.
Well, I'm telling you why, because I'm an old seminary graduate, and they told me, and still are saying, that in order to make it to heaven, you have to do the 10 Commandments plus many other things. I don't have time to go into that. There are about 199 different commandments that you should adhere to. And then if you look at some of the other passages in the Bible, they are greater than the commandments. And if you don't know them and can't do them, it's hard to make it to the pearly gate.
Well, we're going to get off of the religious thing. I will just tell you that there's this thing called grace and mercy.
See, that's what you all fall back on.
What do you mean fall back on?
Well, see, you got to have an out. So if you don't know who made the world, you got to give somebody the status and say they did it. So you say the Lord did it. So if you know you're a sinner, you're a hypocrite, a lowlife, you're a racist, or you're a bigoted person, or you're a black person that hates yourself, you say, grace is going to save me. That's my salvation. See, I don't know how bad I am. The Lord going to forgive me. If I can just say that, Lord, forgive me before I die. I hate to repeat it, but that's the way my dad thinks. He says, son, I've done a lot of bad things, but I just hope I have enough sense just before I die to ask the Lord to forgive me. I said, Pop, you ain't going to be able to do it. I said, you're going to be so sick before you die, you're not going to be able
You
to
just listen to him carefully. You put your ear close to his mouth and let him whisper the words to you.
That's what I'm going to do,
Because,
if he can do that.
as I recall, that's what the man on the cross, the thief, did.
Yep, he did.
And
Whisper that.
he was saved.
That's right.
And so I believe in that. And so that if your father or me or you can get that out in a sincere request, I expect to be saved.
Okay.
And I think you will too. I look forward to that great day when I see you and I walking those streets of gold.
I would be surprised to see both of us up there, sir.
Now we're going to move on. Now, we talk about a lot of things. And, these things should be discussed at the family table. One of the things that's critically important is the family unit. Because the family unit is where you learn about who you are, who you're related to, where you come from. It builds your self-esteem. I am a Garrett. Well, what does that mean? I am a Henderson. What does that mean? It means that there are generations of Garretts that came before me that did things that make me proud, so I'm a proud man. You learn that at the family table, who's related to who, where they came from. You learn how to be a lawyer at the discussions at the family table, at dinner. That's where you learn that there's a such thing as a lawyer. As a doctor, they're having conversation as it relates to law. The family in the black community has been decimated. Doc, it does not function. We have these children, but there is nobody sitting at the dinner table talking about anything.
That's correct.
So how then are our children going to have self-esteem? How then can we institute a program that lets them know who they are, where they came from, what values they should have? How can we help in this crisis situation?
Well, that's not very difficult to answer, sir. This going to happen only if we have a cultural renewal with the church as the basis that will set up foundations and organizations that will promote family unity. I had less time to talk to my mom and dad once we got off the plantation than I did when I was on the plantation. When I lived on the plantation, I had a chance to eat breakfast with my dad. He would get up about an hour before we would get up. Mom would get up first before him, and we ate a small breakfast together every morning before he went to work. Then on the weekend, we had a chance to eat together. But when I got off that plantation, we started going in different directions because we were young teenagers then, going to work, going to school, catching rides here and there. So we didn't eat a lot together. And as I got older, we drifted farther apart. And many times you come home late, you eat in your room, you wouldn't see your mom or dad, you just hear them back there. How you doing, Mom? How you dad? That you know they're back in the room somewhere. And now it's even worse than that. Most people now, 72% of the black people born in America are born without fathers in the home. Matter of fact, they don't even know who the father is in most cases, and the poor female doesn't know who the father is either in many cases. So that is not going to be changing anytime soon in a positive manner, because it is better to have a situation to get a little money here and there than to unite and have those close-knit families. It'll take at least 50 years for that to be reversed. And what you've been reading in the newspaper about the legislators throughout the United States, they are not promoting family unity at all. They are promoting family disintegration.
Well, I'll tell you, we're going to go to a station break in just a minute, and we're going to come back now, and we're going to talk about how we're going to solve some of these problems. We've told you what the problems are. We kind of outlined them for you. We're now going to deal with what we must do to turn this situation around. This just does not apply to African Americans in Mississippi. This applies to the black man all over the world. We must have a plan. We must understand what is required for us to move ourselves forward and to keep ourselves from being completely wiped out. We got a plan. Dr. Henderson and I are going to talk about that plan when we come back. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family. If you're watching us on YouTube, we want you to subscribe. If you're watching us on our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, then we want you to hit the donate button. We need your support and we need your help. We're doing things that no other media outlet is doing in this state. And quite frankly, I don't know if African Americans are doing it anywhere in the world. What I mean by that is that many times you get black news, but the procurer of the black news is in fact the Caucasian. Many times you get all of your information from state-controlled and state-run and white-owned and white-run news outlets. And you just can't tell the truth when you work for that kind of an outlet. You can't say what Dr. Henderson is saying. Imagine that for a moment if the anchor at WLBT-TV was to say what Dr. Henderson has been saying. How long do you think that person would stay in the job? About 30 seconds. As soon as they got off the air, they would be booted out. So you're not able to speak the truth in that environment. And so, but here at We Believe Digital, we're going to bring it to you. Old man Tisdale used to say, whether it pinches or comfort. We're going to bring the information to you, and we're going to give you a plan to correct the situation. Now, we're going to be right back after this station ID, so stay tuned.
Have you had your Earthblend coffee today? At Earthblend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earthblend Coffee.
To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
Welcome back to Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live from We Believe Digital Broadcast Studio. We've been seen all over the world in over 139 countries. You can find us on Facebook, on YouTube, on Roku TV, and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com. Now, we're broadcasting all over the world, and we're dealing with issues and topics that no one else wants to touch. And I was just sharing with my co-host, Dr. Eldridge Henderson, a man amongst men, a gentleman born on the plantation, and is now Dr. Eldridge Henderson. And it reminds me of Booker T. Washington when he said, "It is not the heights that you obtain, but it's the depths from which you came." So if Henderson came from the plantation in the Delta to become Dr. Henderson Jackson right now today, if he had been born in Massachusetts at the university, he would have been president of the United States of America, and the trip would have been the same. His accomplishments would have been the same. But he wasn't born there. He's born on that plantation. And he who starts in the race behind must run faster than everyone else if he intends to catch up. Now, Dr. Henderson, I said it's going to be a rough year. And I said some of the things you say make me want to go and jump off the bridge. And you said I better jump off a high bridge.
That's right. If you think the condition is going to get better within a short period of time, you better make sure you jump off a high one. And I tell you, you better have a knife with you too, because if you jump up that high bridge, because if you have mental unwellness and other problems, economic problems, stress and other tensions, and you jump off that bridge and don't kill yourself, here you are laying up in a hospital, can't walk, can't talk, can't think. Somebody taking care of you, they can't afford to do it because they can't work and take care of you too. And you can't go into an institution that's going to take care of you because you don't have the funds. You would just be another person that I consider a living dead person.
So you say when I jump off the bridge, I need to have a sharp knife?
With you so you can cut your throat while you're jumping. So you make sure that you're guaranteed not to make it. If you're fool enough to commit suicide, even though now it's not illegal to do that.
So you see, we think it's serious. And Representative Sheila Jackson Lee introduced an anti-white supremacy bill just recently. She introduced a bill that's anti-white supremacy. She says we must stamp out white supremacy at all costs if we're going to save this great nation. That's what she said, Don.
Yeah, that's what she said, but it's not going to happen. Guess who has to vote out white supremacy? The white supremacists.
Wow.
They're not going to vote that out. If I had an opportunity to control all the activities in the world as a group, and I'm at the top of that group, they can determine the destiny of everyone else, and I'm talking about 98% of the other people throughout the world, I wouldn't give up that power. That's a wonderful bill that she has introduced. But the very peers in her group not going to vote in her favor.
And you said you wouldn't either?
If I had the opportunity to be in that top 1% in the world.
Or if you were a white supremacist?
That's right.
You wouldn't
or
vote?
A supporter of the white supremacists.
You wouldn't vote for this bill?
Of course not. Now, I'm just telling you the truth. Most people wouldn't say it publicly. If I'm benefiting 100%, I'm not going to do it. You will not find her thinking logically if she tells herself, even after nights of prayer, that this bill is going to pass. It's not going to pass, sir.
Well, I certainly want to say to Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, we thank you for the effort that you're making to try to end white supremacy in this country. We think that, it's holding the country back. We think in Mississippi especially that it keeps us in last position in almost everything. White supremacy in Mississippi makes you deny Medicaid expansion in our state where it would bring billions of dollars into the state of Mississippi, and we turn it down because we think it may benefit the poor blacks and poor whites in the state, and we cannot allow them to have an opportunity to advance because it would jeopardize my way of living. That is the simple truth. And so we thank Representative Sheila Jackson Lee for her efforts. But in Mississippi, we're going to have to find another way since Dr. Henderson said that's not going to work. And he's right. He says that a white supremacist is not going to vote to end white supremacy. Makes perfectly good sense. But then what then must we do? Well, first of all, we must segregate. I'm going to go slow. We thought that integration was a tool that would move the black race forward. It has not. We have lost control over our children, whom we are afraid of now. You pull up to the red light now and young black boys are playing the music so loud until your car is shaking and rolling and rocking, and you dare not even roll down the window and say a word. It reminds me of the joke that Red Fox said. So Red Fox said he was crossing the street, him and his lovely wife, and his wife whispered to him that this guy is pinching my buttocks. And he looked at the guy and he said, hold up, don't worry, just stand still. And finally he said, we got to go now. She said, well, the light hadn't changed. She said, I know, but he's now pinching my buttocks. So we got to go. So we got a situation here now where the discomfort is affecting everybody. So we got to come together now. We got to run the red light together. So what do we got to do? We got to segregate ourselves and our economy. We got to build our own economy. We got to build our own schools. We got to build our own churches. We got to build our own factories. We got to hire our own people. That's not asking too much. It is the only answer. We must save ourselves. Nobody is coming to save us. We must fix our own streets. We must dig our own wells. We must have our own drinking water. We must have everything that we need as a society. We must have the ability to provide it. Nobody's going to like that. Nobody's going to like what we're saying. It was demonstrated when we had Black Wall Street and blacks were moving forward, when we had a vibrant buttermilk bottom in every major city. We had Ferry Street in Jackson. We had Mobile Street down in Hattiesburg, where black doctors and dentists and shoemakers were thriving. Black funeral homes and clothing stores were thriving. And we had self-esteem. Black theaters down at the Alamo. We got to get back to that. We got to control our economy. We cannot keep paying into a system that we don't benefit to. Now, I don't advocate that we go back to Africa or Sierra Leone, even though they are offering dual citizenship over there now. I don't advocate that we do that because this is my home. This is where I was born. What I advocate, though, is that blacks come together, build their own communities, quit moving out of your cities, quit sending your children away to school and they never return. You know, Mississippi is so bad until it's got the worst brain drain of any state in the country, meaning all white kids leave Mississippi because there's no opportunities here. And so we got to fix that. We got to close this down. We got to invest in schools like Tougaloo, Meharry. We got to get back to Spelman. We got to get back to institutions that we control the curriculum, where nobody can tell us what to teach and what not to teach, because we're going to teach what's beneficial to our children. That's what we got to do. Now, you can call it segregation, you can call it a closed society, but what you got to call it is we got to unite. Dr. Henderson says that we have less than 7 years to do this. Doc, why do you say we got less than 7 years?
Well, it's very simple. And I don't just talk off the top of my head, Mr. Socrates. I look at studies, facts, a lot of testimonies from peoples and observations that I have been noting and denoting for years. Black people are in a position where they are being integrated in all areas on paper only, but segregated on the basis of economics. And less than 5% of black people in America and the world have enough economics where they can participate in integrated activities and associations. Number one, the few that can, not going to be allowed to the point where it'll be significant, one here, one there. So what black people must do in Mississippi, in America, and throughout the world, in areas where they are in the majority, they're going to have to focus on 5 different areas of activity where they're in the majority, where they consider themselves black, and they got to do several things. 1, pool their resources. They're going to have to organize themselves from birth to death in the 5 areas that I've been talking about for years, in education and training, economic development, leadership, religion, and politics. So if you control an area or a city or a county, or you are 50% or 30% in a state, every area started on a local level where you're in the majority, you all control those 5 areas that I mentioned from birth to death. Build your community. Create an institution that can finance your community. Create your own banks. And then you can have what you say we don't have anymore. Theaters, businesses, shopping centers, hospitals. And we are not saying you're going to be talking about people that are integrating. You got to have what I call selective self-determination. Look out for yourself first, your family second, and your community third, by controlling those areas where you live with your own leaders. You have to select and train your leaders and put them, when they're young, in positions of responsibility, and then teach them how to be leaders, teach them negotiation, conflict resolution skills, mediation skills, so they can work with anyone that have the resources they need to make it economically, socially, and politically. Go with their opponents. If it's the Democrats or the Republicans, the communists, the libertarians, or whatever, the Methodists or the Catholics, go and work with those folks. Get their resources, use your leverage. When you do that and start prospering, and you have economic independence, social independence, you have your own factories that you mentioned, those people that are anti-you because of your self-determination, positive self-determination, where you're not begging them to use their resources with your own bank, the bankers will give you a favorable rate. You will get more jobs. On and on and on, because they'll be wanting your bodies to come in and bring your resources, buy their products, buy their insurance, buy their cars. On and on and on, and all this can be done within 7 years if black people will start in 2023 worldwide controlling the area where they are with their own resources, with their own leaders, and start building right where they are, all over the world. But they ought to start right here in Mississippi. Because James Meredith, Martin Luther King, and many others said, if you want to fight oppression, you go where it's the most difficult, where it's the hardest. Mississippi has always been the place. Whenever the slaves were told that I'm going to sell you down to Mississippi, many of them would commit suicide or try to run away that same night.
Lord have mercy.
When the slave owner started talking about selling the slaves down to Mississippi, he had to call his boys and get more dogs and more militia to surround his plantation, because those Negroes were leaving. Mississippi was tough.
They didn't want to come to Mississippi.
They say, I'd rather be a slave anywhere than go to Mississippi. If I can't go to Mississippi, I'd know that I'm dead.
Now, Doc, those things that you outlined that we must do, and guys, it's not difficult out here. It's not difficult to do what he's talking about. All we have to do is have focused leadership, and he said the key word, in the areas where you have
the majority.
The majority.
Use your own resources. Train and select your own leaders. And then have your people train, and I didn't tell you where you're going to train them at. You're going to train them in your churches and your community organizations. You're not going to train them in the public schools and the colleges and universities. because you had the same thing. And then you got to teach them those negotiation skills and teach them tax skills.
So train your people. Our people are begging for leadership. Our young men are running the streets, shooting and exercising, hijacking and killing senselessly because they don't have leadership. Our economy is suffering, and our streets are bad, and our water is bad, and our homes are broken because we don't have that leadership that you're talking about. So we got to train this leadership from the cradle.
That's right. And get those that are already out of the cradle, 10, 15, 18, 19, that's out there hooking and crooking, and train those boys and girls. They are waiting for a good leadership. They're just waiting for an opportunity to get some discipline, to be focused. Many of them are just waiting to get in a training program where they can get a certificate. All of them are not going to finish high school. If you done dropped out of school at 15 and now you're 18 or 19, you're not likely to go back to high school. You need to get in a training program where you can get a certification in a certain area where you can make a livable wage. Get to the point where you can join the National Guard or the military. If you're not smart enough for that, get in a position where you can join the Job Corps. If you don't want to do that, you get in a position where you can enroll in some of these community colleges at 16 and get a GED, get a trade where you can get on what we call the Pell Grant and not a loan and get those skilled enhancements. And then you get that family focus then, because you have that training in the church, and the leadership in the church ought to be talking about family development. They ought to be talking about the importance of marriage. They ought to be talking about the importance of discipline. They ought to be talking about creating opportunities in each household where you have study periods and curfews. Every community, the organization ought to have tutorial programs and have a variety of tutorial programs. All the churches are not going to do the same thing. If you have reading and math in one church, you ought to have literature and cybernetics in another one. Or you might have high-tech programs in one church and basic literacy programs in another one. And then transfer this through a 7-day period and get that same student in 3 or 4 programs, and in less than 7 years, you have new people in the sheriff department, new council people, new mayors, new selectmen, new doctors and nurses within 7 years.
Now, we got to come back. We'll be back next week, and we're going to continue this conversation because Doc is outlining what we must do. He's outlining what we must do and who must do it and where it must be done. It can't be any clearer than that. All of the churches, you take more money down to the banks on Monday morning than any other deposit that's going on. It's coming from black churches. And we're just simply saying that you got to deposit into the black banks, in the black savings institutions in your own community. He said that each church needs to be specialized in a specific discipline that is training its community. So we ought not have the Baptists and the holiness and the Christ-like. We ought to have the black church, is what he's saying, that focuses on training black folk. I believe it's okay for us to have the black church. I don't believe that's racist. I believe that says that we got work to do. Now, next week, we're going to come back and we're going to continue to talk about some of these things in the hopes that it'll make a difference, that somebody out there is listening. Somebody will say, we need to spend more time with Dr. Henderson and Brother Garrett. We need to have them come speak to us down at City Hall in the Hinds County Board of Supervisors room. We need to have them come and talk in our schools, in where they're teaching economics, and where they're teaching entrepreneurship, and where they're teaching citizenship. Quite frankly, they're not teaching civics anywhere anymore. We need to institute those things. And so next week, we're going to come back and we're going to continue to lay this out for you because we believe we can make a difference. Doc, any final closing remarks?
Yes, most certainly. I've been telling you sometime that I have opportunities to talk at churches, schools, community organizations, and I'm available to go anywhere in the world. But I prefer starting in the state and moving around in the South and then the nation and internationally. And if people want me to come and talk to them and give them the non-radio and TV version of selective self-determination, ladies and gentlemen, all you have to do is call me at 601-201-1957 or email me at clu369@gmail.com. Tell me how many people you expect to be there, what the activity is, and when you need us, and a team of us will get together and come and give you the real news where you can start changing your life, your family, and your community in 30, 60, or 90 days, guaranteed.
Doc, we appreciate all that you do. And he is so absolutely right. I will be speaking to the Tellers Group, a group from all over this country that are talking about the issues between racism and talk about the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians. I'll get an opportunity to speak to them this Sunday. I've spoken to them on many occasions because they know that if a black man was able to find peace in Mississippi, that you can find peace anywhere in the world between any other groups. And that's why they come to listen, to talk to us about how was it and how did you survive it and how did you come together. Because we sit here today without any hate for any man. We just want to see black folk enjoy the same standard of living that everybody else enjoys. Until next week, this has been Socrates Garrett Live. Stay safe and good night. Good evening. I'm Socrates Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe Digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again.